and welcome to Prescribing Possibility, conversations that inspire us to grow, heal, and live with harmony. I'm your host, Dr. Dympna Weil. Thanks for joining me, friends. So today on Prescribing Possibilities, we are very fortunate to have a powerhouse woman physician, coach, and I consider her a very dear friend who has really helped me become more open to possibilities in my life, and that is Dr. Sunny Smith. And she is a family physician who spent her academic career at UC San Diego School of Medicine, where she wore all the hats. She then transitioned to entrepreneurship to focus on physician wellness through coaching. And her coaching program is now the most effective physician wellness intervention that's been documented to date. And I am very proud to say I am a former client who really can speak and testify to that. Her company, Empowering Women Physicians, is among the Inc. 5,000 fastest growing companies in the U.S., and she has been in the top 1% to 2% of female entrepreneurs in this country for the past 6 years. So I would love to invite magical Sunny Smith to join me. So I just want to welcome you to Prescribing Possibility, my friend, and have to thank you for inspiring me to dream. Sunny and I, for those listening, met 4 years ago when I was a client in her wildly successful and impactful Empowering Women Physicians coaching program. And yeah, it's been a long journey since, and I am just so really grateful to have you here with me. Thanks for taking your time to be with me.
Thank you. I mean, honestly, I would love to hear how you see your journey over the last 4 years. I know that's probably not your intention of interviewing me, but I think it would be lovely to hear before you came to us and then what has transpired since.
You know, it's interesting. Before I started the coaching program, I had done some coaching myself, like self-coaching, which was kind of helpful. But then the pandemic happened. And we were in New York and had no PPE and all the jazz. And then 6 months into it, I started having my dizziness and disequilibrium symptoms. And it was about, 4 months into that very wildly disorienting time that I was kind of going stir crazy and didn't know what to do with myself. And I had all these thoughts like, if I'm not in my white coat and I'm not seeing patients, I am not a doctor. And if I'm not a doctor, what am I? And what am I going to do? And what if this doesn't get better? And I was in that spin cycle sort of thing. And so I found you online and I signed up. And then there was no turning back because I was able to, learn the tools that I had, picked up some of them, right, during listening to podcasts and that sort of thing in the past. But there was something very special about being in a group and doing that work together. I think particularly because of the time it was. It was exactly the right time during COVID when we all were really craving that connection with others. So that was before and during. And then since then, I have learned to be a lot kinder to myself and to allow what is going on with my body to go on and to realize, my brain's not broken. I can do other things. I just have to do them a little differently than I used to. And that's a far cry from where I was when I started.
Right. And how did you go from that to where you are now? Because you're like, I thought I was broken and then I realized I'm not broken, and skip ahead. Here I am now having my own podcast and writing a book. So how did that evolve for you?
Interestingly, I think I just decided, I decided that I was done in any way feeling less than or victimized or incapable. And when I made that decision, that was it. It's like, well, how can I use my voice? How can I serve others? How can I care? So it was less about, what my limitations were. And it was much more about what are the possibilities and how can I, shift and adjust and pivot. And I think that fluidity really made all the difference,
Mhm.
rather than being so stuck in that one frame of mind. And that's really the whole beauty of coaching, isn't it?
Right. Right. I was just going to say that actually kind of encompasses pretty much many, if not
Yeah.
most people's journeys in coaching is like, there's this pain
Yep.
that brought me and I was stuck in the pain. And then you said, how can I? And looking at possibilities. That is literally the shift that we try to
Hmm.
teach there. And like, hope theory or the psychology of hope is having a goal, having agency, like believing that you inside of you have the agency and ability to make something happen, not waiting for
Right.
something out there, right? And then the third thing is
Yeah.
pathways thinking, which is what you were
Yep.
just describing. It's like, how can I? What are the pathways? There's more than one
Right.
pathway. And doctors have been taught there is one
Yes.
pathway for through which you serve the world, and that is the way that you are valuable in society, and it is your identity. And if you don't have
Hmm.
this, who are you? And so whenever there's a boss that's a jerk or some kind of roadblock, a
Yep.
midlife crisis or awareness or
Hmm.
awakening of this is all the time that I
Yeah.
have, what am I doing? I think that there's, again, that's like an identity crisis for many people. And then it's that, okay, you come to this reckoning. How can you find this, whether it's the psychology of hope with those three steps, or, that's encompassed in part of coaching, just that part of
Yeah.
possibilities, strengths, assets. Coaching is
Hmm.
strengths based. We're not looking at what's broken, we're looking at what's right with you and what's whole with you and how you can show up in the world with the magic that is uniquely you. And that's exactly what
Well,
you're doing, right? That's like exactly
it
what you're doing right
somehow
now. It's
somehow it
beautiful.
happens.
Yes.
It's so
Yes.
interesting
Yes.
because I think the part that I really benefited quite a lot from, well, there were many parts. I don't even know where to begin. But the one I can say that I was a little hesitant about was the group process. And it was
Yes.
just so
Yes.
validating to hear other people
Yes.
who have gone through the same kind of rigors of training, who've gone through all of these things. They speak my language, they understand what I'm feeling. Even if they didn't have the exact same experience, it doesn't matter. Like the themes, I always say, like the themes are the same, the individual storylines are different, but there's that connection
Mm.
when in that group.
Mhm. I Yes, I think that's really beautiful, exactly the way you said it, because it's the part I was hesitant about. It's the reason people think this might
Hmm.
not be for me, because I just need my own personal one-on-one thing. I don't really want or need this group thing because we live in an individualistic
Hmm.
society in general. And then you put in the individualism in medicine, like just strong work,
Right.
suck it up, you can do it. And then if you need help, you just need a very personal help, and you don't realize that you've been
Right.
indoctrinated in a system that gives all of us a very
Hmm.
similar mindset in addition to
Right.
being human. And so that one of the things you're most hesitant about is one of the most useful parts of a coaching that has an opportunity for
Yeah.
one-on-one and for group, because they're uniquely valuable. And I think that is why, we look at our data. I think that is why we are so
Hmm.
effective, is because of
Yes.
the group
Yeah.
plus one-on-one. One-on-one alone
Totally.
is
A
effective.
100%.
And we see data, RCTs, like it is effective. And if you look at the effect size, I think part of the reason that we are so, effective with the large and very large effect size is that what you said is that part that makes people hesitant is the part that in the end is like, whoa,
Yeah.
I'm not alone. Whoa. As you said, it's, the themes are the same, the
Yeah.
storylines are different, but it's the human condition and for us, the female
Yeah.
physician condition that we're examining very closely and get
Yeah.
to
I
know
think
very
that
well.
really sums it up quite lovely. And the interesting thing I found was, the group coaching experience, right? A lot of it is done individually, but within the group setting. And I think people have a misunderstanding or a misconception about that. And yes, it requires
Hmm.
vulnerability. But I think
Hmm.
immediately, because of that resonance among the people in the cohort, you just have this. It really is magic, and I just remember feeling like I cried after the first couple of sessions when I was done. I remember sitting on the couch with Sean, my husband, and I'm like, they get me. And
Yeah.
that's when
Yeah.
the idea that I didn't have to wear the white coat for now. Maybe I was going to wear it
Mhm.
again. I didn't know how
Mhm.
long this was going to last. I
Mhm.
certainly didn't expect that in 2025, as I sit here, I would be doing this.
No. You never that's the thing is you can never know how
Yep.
it's gonna work out. We know that it all works out in the end. If it hasn't worked out, it's not the end, but you just cannot know. It's only in
Hmm.
hindsight that it
Yes.
makes sense because there's so many possible
Yeah.
paths forward. We know there is a path, but you just can't know. And without that certainty, as physicians, we want
Hmm.
control and certainty. We're like, okay, first year, second year, third year, fourth year, residency,
Right.
associate professor,
Next hoop,
clinical
please.
professor.
I know how to jump
Yeah,
through them.
I know. I know. We're like, where's the hoop? And it's like it's a really beautiful kind of adult development stage to be like, and now you're on your own.
Yeah.
Go forth,
Yeah.
little one. Like I just my kid just graduated from
Oh.
sixth grade and I got him Oh the Places You'll Go. And he's like, Mom, you used to read this to me when I was a kid. I was a baby, when I was in kindergarten. I'm like, I know, but at every stage, it's like once you come to this new place, okay, now let's watch and see what
Hmm.
happens and what develops. And I think that we all have been sold this bill of goods that once you become an attending, you've arrived, and that's the
Yep.
terminal condition, and that that version of you is the forever version of you. And it's like, wait a minute, adults have developmental
Yeah.
stages too. And it's very normal, especially post pandemic, as you said, for physicians to look at their lives and their professional careers differently and to
Hmm.
evolve over time. We've had many of our clients featured for the way they
Yeah.
evolved their careers, and some of them, most are still clinical, but they evolve in some way because it doesn't have to look like, for instance, the old white man from 100 years ago that started residency and was on
Right.
cocaine made things look like. It doesn't
Right.
have to look like that, or even what it looked like 50 years ago, or even what it looked
Yeah.
like pre-pandemic. So I think it's just opened up a lot of
It's my word.
possibility for
It's like my
flexibility.
word for the
Yes.
last several years, you know? And you just mentioned
Yes.
evolving, right? So who were you
Mhm,
before
mhm.
coaching found you? And then how did this version of you evolve?
So beautiful. We're
I
each telling
know,
our
I love it.
stories here.
There's
So,
similarities.
and yes, and this is the condition of what we do inside, right? It's like everyone comes in and
Hmm.
tells their story, and we get to go alongside that person on their real life journey in real time
Right.
as it happens. Because here, as we tell it, like as you said, I never would have known I'd be on a podcast, and and now it just all seems so
Yeah.
clean and put together, and it's beautiful on the inside to see the messy middle as it evolves because it is messy.
Oh,
And so
yes.
for me, I was a exactly. I was a professor at UC San Diego School of Medicine. I spent my whole career running a free clinic there, which was very, very meaningful and beautiful and like a custom created job just for me, where I was medical director there. And then I was a community director, which meant overseeing 1/6 of the medical school and the students for their personal and professional development, which allowed me, both of those roles together allowed me to be very intimately involved in their personal, professional
Hmm.
well being and development and relationship and what does medicine look like and what do we want it to look like, and idealism, because when you bring someone in who's just written their personal statement about why they want to be a doctor and you hand them their white coat in front of their
Hmm.
family and everyone's crying and you say their name on stage, and then a couple of weeks later, of course, they're
The tears
depressed
are
and,
coming.
and scared and think they're gonna drop out, and my job was like, it's gonna be okay, it's gonna be okay, I promise
Yeah.
you it's gonna be okay. And so helping guide them through the rest of that journey while caring for the most marginalized in society who can't even afford to go to the safety net. It's profoundly meaningful, and yet it's
Right.
heart-wrenching to see you know those who are the best and brightest and want to change the world and have all this compassion. We know objectively that we beat
Hmm.
out the
Yes,
compassion
we do.
in medicine. And we know that we take people with above average mental health for age matched peers and make
Right.
them much worse. And so what happened to me is that I got in a bicycle accident, and as you know, and broke my arms and my face and wasn't able to continue with this very busy pace of nights and weekends. I worked every Monday and Wednesday evening until about 10 or 11 p.m. every single week for years, decades on end, and then some Saturdays, and always charting and writing letters of rec and being the course director, doing grades, just all the things that we all do, and things pile up over the years. And I was a mommy of a preschooler at that time, and everything came to a screeching halt unwillingly. And so it was a forced rest for me, just like yours.
Yes.
Interestingly, I have found it's often a true health crisis upon which we are no longer able to physically function in the way medicine demands of us, which is inhumane
And very a
unrealistic.
sad state. Like if it
Right?
takes us until the
Yes,
point where we
it
can no
takes
longer
that.
function. Yeah.
We're broken.
Yes.
We have no choice.
Yes.
We have no choice. That is the point at which we will stop. Like both of my arms didn't work, and I could not even sit or stand. I couldn't care for myself, couldn't go to the bathroom by myself, couldn't shower myself, couldn't feed myself. That's when we stop. And so at that point is the very first time I had discovered coaching or podcasts.
Yeah.
Like, this is a podcast now. I didn't even know I had a
You and
podcast
me
app on my
both.
phone until that point. Exactly. So someone told me, and someone would put AirPods in my ears and press play, and then I would be left alone for the day because I couldn't do anything. And I would just sit and listen, and I listened to coaching podcasts about when you can't change your circumstances, you can change the way you think about things. Because I was sure pretty pissed off. I had been on that bike, and all I wanted to do was rewind time and change my circumstances. And that is not helpful, and that is not possible, and that is mentally taxing. And just like you were like, I am broken, what am I going to do? I was like, I can't do anything, this is frustrating. And I switched from that to, this might be the most useful perspective shift I could ever have, because I would see my friends come over and they were so busy, women physicians, so busy. And they were rushing. They'd come visit, be real nice, and then be rushing to go do whatever. I'm like, what are you rushing to? Like, what's so important? Did you drive yourself here? Did you get yourself dressed today? You have such a blessing. Like, don't take this for granted. If ever I get back to being able to do those things, I'm not going to do it the same. And so I had to give away, I was a director, I had 7 different director titles, and I gave away most because everything I thought I had to do, obviously I didn't.
There was somebody there.
Because the world kept spinning. Yeah, the grades got done, the patients got seen, prescriptions got written. Someone even dropped off my kid at school and picked him up and made him food. Like everything that I was like, I have to. And if you look at the lives of women physicians, that's what we do. Like we're playing, one of my friends, colleagues, clients had said it's like a 10 out of 10 score on gymnastics. You know how there's a level of difficulty? And we all chose, okay, be a mom of young children and be a full-time physician and be in charge of this and that and the other. It's like it's at least 2 full-time jobs.
It's the caregivers. Like it's the caregiver paradox is what I keep talking about. It's like we don't take we care for everybody else and everything else, and we do that wholeheartedly, and we love to do it. Yeah. But we don't take care of ourselves. Yeah, we're very good at it, but we don't take care of ourselves. Yes. At
what cost? At what cost? At first, it's fine, but it's the compound effect over years that is like that fatigue that can't be made up in one night or on one vacation, right? It's like, yes, exactly. And so I learned about coaching. I learned about shifting my mindset. I learned about seeing things differently. I experienced it very deeply. And then when I went back, I still had a lot of physical limitations. I had these big giant robot arm thing on.
And you went back with them. I just want to point that out to the listeners. Like most people would have been like taking their papers to their doctor and saying, could you extend my leave? Which is very reasonable.
Exactly. I know. I know. It would have been very, like, I couldn't do pap smears. I couldn't do like so much. I had a robot arm
and you
on
were
my arm.
Back.
It was giant and I was working as soon as possible because I didn't want to miss the next white coat. day. So like I went to the graduation as an example, and I was supposed to hood people. You know how when you become a doctor, you put this hood over someone and they choose a faculty member, and it's a big honor to be chosen. And it's usually someone you've really bonded with. And I was in a wheelchair and I like couldn't sit and I kept leaning back and leaning back. And then I just had to leave and the dean had to do that for me. But I was trying to be there. So I took the summer
Yep.
off because I had to. And then I wanted to get back for that next white coat ceremony because I wanted to meet their families and have them, you know, be introduced to the person who's responsible for guiding them for the next 4 years. But again, giant robot arm, and then I'm off to the clinic with this giant robot arm. So, but I knew that I was limited physically, and so there was, you know, what can I do? What do I want to do most? And this would be something because most people aren't going to have to go
Right.
through this, and you hope that they don't have to go through this and that they can learn from people like you or me or others who've gone through some kind of crisis and had to really reevaluate what is most important to you. What do you want to do if you could re-choose your
Right.
life from scratch? Which parts of what you do would you proactively
Yeah.
put in? As opposed to like, what can I take out? It's like, no, what means the most and what do I
Right.
want to put in? So I was like, I want to advise students and I want to do clinical care. And a lot of the other stuff that was administrative stuff, I'm like, I can let that go. Anyway, there's very long and very much shorter versions of this story, but
I've heard them all. And
so
I love it
I know.
because I think it's really, it speaks to like
So
what we will put ourselves through, even
exactly,
unknowingly. Like we just
exactly.
do it.
Yeah, it's unknowingly, and that's the thing. It's the whole, you know, pot of water temperature going up as the frog is boiling and the frog doesn't jump out
Yes.
and doesn't notice. And so when I was asked to go back in, I'm like, oh, that water's hot. And I don't have my cooling mechanisms anymore. I'm like, I could
Yeah.
dip my toe in. And so, and I did, and it was very meaningful. Yet I had signed up for this coaching program, and then they offered, you know, that they were signing up people to train. And I knew there was one physician
Yes.
who had trained
Yep.
at Katrina Bell, right? And because she was not crazy, it sounded like on a podcast, sounded like she spoke
Yes,
normal
she
doctor
did.
talk. I was, yeah, I was like, so this means we're not crazy. So I did it. I went. When I went there, it was a big secret. I didn't want anyone to know because I thought it was super
Yep.
weird what I was doing. I'd only told my best friends, but I ran into like four other physicians who were all there in secret. And I was like, we're not crazy. This matters. We're doing this.
Yeah.
This is meaningful. I started doing it. I did it for free during training, and I had no idea if it would really work with
Yes.
strangers. And I'm sure you've had this experience too. Does this really work with strangers, or
Yeah.
is it just me? And so I worked with 10 people I was training, and it worked for every
Yeah.
single one of them. And then I started my company, and it's been really one of the most meaningful experiences I've had in my life, or been able to have on an
Yeah.
ongoing basis, is helping women physicians look at the lives they live, look at the indoctrination we've all received, and reevaluate from a place of, I don't know, awareness, compassion,
Yes.
insight, empowerment. Like, you are one of the most educated and empowered women to ever have walked the face of the earth. And so, what are you going to
That's
do with that? Because we are not taught that. We're taught you must comply, you're in debt, you have to do all this stuff, pay off your debt, and then pay off your mortgage. And then once you're maybe
right.
55, 65, you can start to lighten up. And it's like, that's not really the way it has to be. And we certainly don't have to work like you
Yep.
and your specialty, right? You don't have to work 30, 36 hours in a row. You don't have to take call one weekend every single month. You don't, I find, especially as people get to
Yes.
midlife, say you're perimenopause, menopause, you're like,
This
so staying
not
up all
good.
night every fourth night is
No.
not easy. And it's not good on my
Yes.
family. And it's not good for me. And so it's like what we were able to endure in our 20s and 30s gets harder in our 40s and sometimes gets feeling near impossible or at a breaking
Right.
point in our 50s and certainly by 60s. But you don't have to keep doing it all that time. It's like, how can we
Right. So
modify as we
I want
go?
to just go back a minute and say, you know, you had to, you mentioned like becoming a different version of yourself, like thinking what was possible. So like what did you have to unlearn in order to like get to the place where you could lead again, right? After your healing.
Yeah.
I'm curious.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I mean, what I had to do, I think, because was convinced, like, I just felt like I had
Yeah.
awakened. Like once you realize that this is all, everything is made up and everything in medicine or whatever
Yep.
profession people are in, whatever standards, like Monday through
Yep.
Friday is made up. 8-hour days are made up, 12-hour days are made up, 36-hour days are made up. It's all made up. And then we just all agree on this mental construct. And once you start seeing it's all just a mental construct, and I remember my department chair had said to me that 40, because I was like, I work 40 hours a week, and our funding, it was during the last
Mm-hmm.
Trump administration. And so our administration, our funding for our free clinic had
Mm-hmm.
been cut. As you can imagine, the grants that we used to receive to care for undocumented people were no
Right.
longer available at all. You couldn't even apply for them. So my salary was cut, our clinic was cut. We went from 5 days a week to 3 days a week. And I was still working because, again, our
Right.
days were long. And I was still working 40 hours a week. I said, do you think 40 hours, I don't work 40 hours a week? And he goes, 40 hours a week is not full
Yeah.
time. He said, everyone here works 60 hours a week. That's full time. And I just looked at him like dumbfounded
Yeah.
after I had returned with this big robot arm on. And I'm like, I was just said very specifically, I do not agree with your mental
Yeah.
construct.
That's such a powerful statement.
And I just sat there, right, that 40 hours a week is part time. I do not agree with that mental construct. And in my mind, because I had been becoming
Mm-hmm.
more aware of just bias and patriarchy and just all and the way things were and how medicine really was largely made by old white men. And I would look around at the leaders, and this was an old white man with a stay-at-home wife. And I was like, I have to, because once, like picking the
Yeah.
kid up at preschool, it's a real issue. I have to be there by 6 or they'll call Child
Right.
Protective Services. Like,
Yeah.
this is not a joke.
Yeah.
I
And they
have
don't
to leave.
understand that.
And if you no, and if I have to be at clinic at 8 and school starts at 8, you're really telling me, and I'm like, can I please be there at 8:15? And they're like, no. I'm like, okay, so you're telling me I have to look for a nanny and tell her I need her for half an hour in the morning because I mean, I know it sounds ridiculous, but like when the responsibilities at my work shifted from what it had been to what it was going to have to be
Yeah.
because of these funding shifts, I was like, I just know I do not comply. I will not comply with
Yeah.
this huge shift, which is a huge salary cut and is a huge shift in the number of hours and where. And none of this works with my ability to care for this body of mine and this home of mine and this
Right.
child of mine. And I just will no longer be complicit in your system that makes
Right.
no sense.
Amen.
So that
Because
was like,
it's the system, right?
yeah,
It's
it was
like
like,
they have there's this
yes,
way of doing it. And then when you raise the
right,
point like, well, couldn't we try doing it this way? And it's like, no. And
right.
you're like, are you
No.
listening to
And
yourself?
no, yeah, that it's just when you start to, because I had
Yeah.
been removed from it and when I was coming back, the changes were happening and I was like, why is everyone going along as if this is okay? So anyway, that's the
Yeah.
original transition. And then I started surrounding myself. I was surrounded with not only those small number of doctors, but a community of people who
Right.
were coaches. And it draws together a like-minded group of anything is possible. What you see and believe, well, you see
Right.
what you believe, first of all, which again came to fruition very clearly in the COVID
Yes.
era and all of that, is you will find evidence for what you believe. It's the way the brain works, is confirmation bias. And so when I would learn about psychology along with
Mm-hmm.
neuroanatomy, along with function, it's like this is
Yes.
science that we find what we believe. And so look at what you believe and see if you want to create different results, then you have to start to believe other things is possible. And so just like you said that your word was possibilities, my word at that time was possibilities. I was like, okay, if they're forcing me to go part-time, I'm going to
Right.
force whatever. If I chose to
Yes.
stay at a job, because notice how I have to give myself the agency back. If I choose to stay at a job where they're saying this is part-time, then fine, I'm going to take the rest of
Yes.
my time and I'm going to work on this business that is very meaningful and show people how I'm not choosing to comply with anything I don't want to
Right.
comply with anymore. And you don't have
Yes.
to either, whether it's your marriage or your work or your mother-in-law
Yeah.
or your whatever the circumstance is. And even if there's circumstances you can't change, like some people that I coached had prophylactic mastectomy, or like it's not saying you can just not comply with
Right.
something because I mean, obviously, there are circumstances in our life, just
Yeah.
like my arms or whatever, that you have to deal with. But how do you see those and how do you find your agency instead of my boss is a jerk, they're telling me this, okay, I can choose to stay or I
Yes.
can choose to go. And so I really found that I believed, here's the thing is I believed what my coach taught me. And because a lot of people
Yes.
were skeptical, right? And you know this too, and you did too. It's like I believe that I create my results and that I'm responsible for my results and that I'm not a victim of anybody
No.
else's system because they told me this or they told me that. I'm like, and I never want to gaslight anybody by being like, this is your fault. You're the
Right.
victim. Don't play the victim. That's not what we're saying. We're saying we start and validate right where they are.
Mm-hmm.
It makes sense you're in the system that you're in. It makes sense that you're in the situation you're in. It makes sense that all of them are trying to extract as much work
Right.
from you as possible and that they value RVUs more than they value the patient outcomes. It
Yes.
all makes sense. The system makes sense. You make sense. And so, given with radical acceptance of what
Mm-hmm.
is, what do you
Yes.
choose? And so I think that's a very empowering. It is
Right.
what it is, right? Don't argue with reality. That's a waste of time. And now what do you choose? Where is your agency in that like
Right.
hope theory, right? What's your goal? What's your agency? And then there's many
Well, and I
pathways to
think
get
you hit
there.
right on it there. It's like you just need to, for me at least, it was knowing that I could choose something differently. Because, a lot of
Exactly.
times, like our lives are, at least doing like medical training, it's so prescribed. Like this is what we do.
Yes.
This is how we do it.
This is the path. Yeah, and then
Yes.
entrepreneurship, as you know, is the
Opposite.
exact opposite, which is like you make it all up, all of it. You make up the business, you make up the prices, you make up the offers, you make up who you work with, you make up how it works and
Yeah.
what time, and all of it is made up. And so when you see, you go from like everything is prescribed and you have
Yes.
absolutely no choice. Like residency is one option where you're like, here's what it is. You don't get choice. And we can find spaces where there's choice. If we ever look, we can always find
Yes.
spaces where there's choice. For anybody who wants a reference, the book The Choice by Edith
Amazing.
Eger is amazing on that. Holocaust survivor, if she can find choice in Auschwitz, it always inspires me and reminds me everyone can find some place
Yeah.
where you have choice, even when you feel trapped and there is no choice. And so, we brought her into EWP a couple of times, and I've done a couple of things
Hmm.
with her recently as well in her own programs. And it's just remarkable to remind ourselves we're always choosing something
Yes.
in this life and
Yeah.
be
And
mindful.
And
Be
sometimes
mindful
when
of
we
that.
don't decide to do something, that too is a choice, right? And
That
that's,
is
I
a
think
choice.
we
Hmm.
forget that part of it is that, we may not want to make a
Hmm.
decision about something because there's a lot to think about or there's a lot involved in it. But at the end of the day, you can still make that choice to leave the job, leave the toxic
Right,
relationship, right? And
right,
figure it out afterwards. Like
right.
you don't have to have all of the
Yeah,
answers. That too is a really important
yeah,
thing because we're so used to having all of the answers. Like people come to us for the
right.
answers or to find out the answers. And then all of a sudden we're just saying,
Yes.
I don't have to know all of the answers.
And in fact, there aren't like real
Yes.
answers. Like recently, more recently in my evolution of myself, so then I created this very successful, amazing, impactful, meaningful group of women physicians, and that has gone on for the past,
Hmm.
several years. And then about 6 months ago, I had a life-threatening illness, and where I almost died I was laying on a hospital floor begging for my life, truly believing that might be my last moment. Impending doom, those listeners who know about medicine and impending doom, like it's this sense of this is my last moment. I had sepsis and my lactate was 5.6, which is, a
Oh
critical
my God.
life-threatening illness. And I was laying on the floor. They thought I was faking. And the whole point of bringing that up is that I thought that I had this idea of it's your choice, it's your life before when I went through that, oh, my arms were broken. And if I ever get healthy again, this is how I'm going to choose things differently. But I never thought I was going to die
Right.
at that time. Like, I never thought my life would be over. I just thought I might be disabled. And if I could get my
Yes.
ability back, then I would live differently. This time, 6 months ago, was like that on steroids because I really did have moments because I did think I was going to die. Then I got better. because, I got the right treatment. I
Mhm.
started getting much better. And then I went home and started getting worse again. And I just thought, and I had to lay there thinking, am I calling 911? Am I not
Right.
calling? What am I going to do? I grabbed a notebook and wrote to myself, may I get to live, if I get to live. And I wrote for real because I'm such a coach slash
Yes.
journaler slash processor slash mental health person. I'm just like, if I really do get to live, and like
Yeah.
crying, writing it, like praying to the universe, if I get to live, this is what I
Yeah.
want. This is what I want to remember. And none of it was about things like work and being a director and,
Doesn't
that
matter.
type. It's like, no, I just said, I just want more days on this planet. That was the first line. It always makes
I
me
know.
tearful if I think about it, but like, I just want more days on this planet. Just more
Yeah.
days, please. Please give me more days. Please let me wake up tomorrow, please. And then more
Yes.
healthy days. Could I please have more healthy days? I want to be able to sit up and walk because I couldn't walk from the bathroom to my sofa. And I was like crawling. I was like, please, please let me be okay. And then after that, I wanted to see my little boy smile and
Yes.
laugh. I just, please let him see him smile and laugh. And then like see my
Yes.
fuzzy doggy and feel a fuzzy blankie and watch the sunsets into the ocean. And it's like, when you realize that's
Hmm.
what matters. You don't have to end up on hospice or with some terminal diagnosis to realize this is what matters. And if you are, quote unquote, wasting or at least not spending this very, very precious gift of life on this planet the way that's in
Yes.
alignment with you, then what are you doing? Who is owning you if
Right.
not you? It's just, I know there's the practicality because some people must say, like, must be nice to be able to just make decisions the way you want. Like, I have bills to pay. Every one of the 8 billion of us have
Hmm.
bills to pay. Some have more privilege and some have less privilege, and all of us get this
Yes.
day. Like, this is what we get. And so I think that has been that acute awareness of life and the preciousness of what a gift it is to
Yes.
exist it can't be ever present because how could you go
Right.
about your day, right? How could you do the things except to be present for every
Hmm.
moment, right? Every healing encounter that we have as physicians. And yet to say, and my own, you know, life and ability to be present and live and feel joy and be with my family and be with myself and be with my friends and be in awe of the universe is equally as
Yes.
important.
And let me
And,
ask you this. I don't
something,
mean to
go
interrupt
ahead.
you, but I wonder, like, how do we, not just how do we believe that, right? I know how we can cognitively go through all the steps, but how
Right,
do
right,
we, like, go from I want to do all of these wonderful things that bring me joy, and how do you hold that
right.
with the realities of medicine? And that's a lot of the trickiness,
Mhm.
right?
It is. It is. I think a lot of people that I find who are women physicians actively
Hmm.
practicing right now really start with this is what I have, and it's like 80% of their life is
Yes.
stuff they don't
Hmm.
want. And I'm gonna try to do yoga if they come into some kind of wellness space. They're like, well, I will try to do yoga I'll do the 5
Right.
a.m. club, right?
I'll
Like,
punish
I'll do,
myself and
I'll
add
add
something
in,
else.
I'll wake
Yeah.
up extra early, and that's the way to get better. But I think, I mean, I understand that, and yet I challenge us to think if we start with the
Hmm.
blank space, a blank slate, which sometimes some of my clients go
Yes.
on leave because say they come in distress, they do go on leave. Most don't, but
Right.
this is an example, right? Where it's like, what if you had 3 months? Because you actually can take 3 months off. I know everybody says must be nice. Oh, I'd like a sabbatical. That's for the, I've seen so many people say like that's for the rich people. I'm like, I don't know. People do it when they get any kind of
Yes.
diagnosis and it seems to work out. So why do you need the
Right.
diagnosis? But if you just look at, okay, if you did have a blank slate and you filled your cup first and put life in first, this seems very out of reach, I
Yes.
know, to most people. But as a thought
Right.
exercise, even if you're not going to act on it, what would your life look like if you put life
Mm-hmm.
first and you worked so that you could have fulfillment and also
Right.
obviously pay your bills. But it wasn't that they gave you this job option and you had to take
Right.
it as is. It's like, no, if you were in charge of your life and you designed it, what would you want it to look like? And so many of my clients, as an example, will leave some job they really find is
Mm-hmm.
not flexible for them, and they might start
Yes.
doing locums. And they're
That's an
like,
option?
oh, I make way more
Yeah.
money in way
Yep.
less time. This is fascinating. Or they
Yeah.
do per diem, or they sign up for a second job. As an example, that would be a job with
Right.
no call, or a job that
Yeah.
was 3 days a week, or whatever that is. That's just some
Mm-hmm.
do telehealth. And then the thing is, of course, you think you want flexibility, but inside of our minds is actually we're still our old selves. And so I find a lot of people, say for instance, who go into telehealth, they will work so many hours because you
Yep.
get reimbursed, but for the number of hours. And so we're like, wow, look how much I can make. And then we work
Well, it's
ourselves
this
into the
the
ground
cycle,
again. And so it's like, be
right?
careful. Yes, the overworking cycle, it's what
Yes.
we know.
It's
It's
comfortable.
familiar. We're
Yes.
so used to it. Yes. You know what's uncomfortable is having
Yes.
downtime. At first it's amazing, and then you're like, so you
This.
experience this, right? Like, what do I do with
Yeah.
this downtime? I'm supposed to be seeing people and working
Well,
really
and
fast
I
to be frazzled.
remember in that time thinking, I'm supposed to be working. What am I doing? And it was, for me,
Right,
I found it particularly
right.
tricky because it was the middle of the pandemic. And I felt guilt
Yes,
about
yes.
not being able
Guilt.
to be there
Mm-hmm.
to care for patients and to help my
Right.
team out,
Yes,
you know? And it's interesting
yes.
when you brought up the changing of, positions. Something I inherently did for myself over time, right? I left an academic position when it was no longer tenable and went into private practice because
Mm-hmm.
I figured, well, then I'm going to have more say
Right.
and autonomy.
Right.
And
Yes.
then the
Yes.
business of
Yes.
healthcare evolved, and
Right.
that was no longer true because even in the private practice before it was bought out, it was, how about we do this? How about if we're on call, we don't work that Monday and see patients? Or when we're on call, maybe
Mm-hmm.
we shouldn't have patients in the office because there's so many of us. And
Yes.
these were like
Yes.
to the, and
I
I'm like, is
know, right? No work post call. What is this? No clinic
yeah,
person. Like, again, all the rules are made up, and it's autonomy
hmm
people want. And so I believe that, and the Surgeon General of California, which is where I live, talks about workplace
yes,
flexibility, because these like cookie cutter things don't work for everyone. Everyone is human.
hmm
Everyone. And so that means we're all going to
yes,
take our turn. Like, your mom is going to get sick and die. Your grandma is going to have something. Your child is going to get sick if you have a child. Your body is going to have a health need. And so we will have different
yes,
seasons of life, and we will have different needs. And can our workplaces become flexible? And I think that's the
I do
way of
too.
the future, is that we don't have to keep doing it this same cookie cutter way. That, Linda Street
Yes.
is someone, from, she talks about negotiation for, and coaches women physicians on that. And she says something like, we're all trying, I'm gonna mess it up, but like, we're all trying to walk in
Mm.
the same shoes, and the shoes were like made for
Yeah.
white men. And they're too big, and they give us blisters, and we keep trying to walk. And it's just like, it doesn't, this one size fits all shoe doesn't, it rubs a lot of us the wrong way and is super uncomfortable for different reasons, and it fits some
Yes.
people just fine, but some of us just need something a little
Yeah.
bit different. And so I think, instead of looking at the people who choose something different as broken, what we do
hmm
in our program in our communities is we see them as strong. Like, we think that is
Yes.
strong work. Is, look at you making your own way. Look at you creating this life that you love. And even my job, for instance, running a free clinic in the
Right.
basement of a church, like, I sat in toddler chairs. They were for 2-year-olds for 20 some years. Like, that was just made up. And so I have came to learn that creating a free clinic out of nothing is kind of was similar in some ways to creating a business out of nothing and creating a whole new company and something that never existed, although one of them was quote unquote free, but there is no free lunch.
Right.
You need grants, you need donors, you
Someone's
need
paying for
all
it.
the stuff that it takes. Someone pays for everything. But looking at, there was not, because I tried working at a community health center, many community health centers, and I did, per diems and worked in the ED and worked in like with senior citizens and home visits and all the things my first year, because there wasn't really a job that was fit me perfectly. Because when I'd work in the community health center, which I did a lot of hours, I was very dedicated to underserved care. But at the end of the day, I'd have 30 charts piled up, and it just this pace, and it was not a good fit for who I am fully. It met a big part of what I wanted to do, yet I couldn't do that as a career for the next 40 years. And so being able to find this space where I could create something that aligned my meaning and purpose with my sort of skills and capacity. You know that I'm long-winded, obviously, on this podcast, but for having known me, like a 10-minute visit is not really easy for me.
That's why we love you, though.
Or most people. Yes. So that I had to create a space where I was allowed to take my time and allowed to teach the way I wanted and allowed to heal. And we looked at our outcomes, and we published our free clinic from the basement of the church outcomes in JAMA and in leading medical journals that we were as good or better as other healthcare systems. Because if you allow people to shine in the way that speaks to their strengths, which is what coaching does. What are your strengths? Let's lean into those and allow you to be more you. And there's some people who are super efficient, and they're like the epic super users.
No,
that is not me.
I don't want it to be me either.
No. It just wasn't me. It would never be me. I could try, but it wasn't. And so my strength is my heart and my compassion. And so how can I find a job that highlights those and allows me to be me and contributes that part, for instance, of medical education or patient care? And so now it contributes that part in physician well-being. I always did well-being at the med school, but it would take, interestingly, 8 years or so for someone to become an attending and get out the other side. And then now what I do, it takes 8 weeks. That's our program, 8 weeks, not 8 years. And to remind people, they have agency, because they don't see it. But if you surround them, just like you, with a whole bunch of people who are going through this very real struggle in very real time. I'm struggling with this. I'm trying to find this. What can I do? And they have to go out and experiment in the world. Okay, I went and told my boss this, or I went and cut back here, or I went and, again, whether it's personal or professional, they go do the thing, and then they come back and they're like, oh God, this is awful. This is horrible. This is very uncomfortable. Yes. And you lived.
And you did it.
And you are getting closer to what you want. You did it. And we feel proud when we do things that are hard. Like, that's when we look back on our life, the things we're most proud of the things that were hard, not the things that were easy.
It's interesting because one of the things that I have come to see in my clients, and I know they're there in yours because I've listened to the stories, right? I think we also have been sold that kind of shiny object of, when you're done, you'll be this, and you'll be able to balance it. Like, successful people balance it all. And what I have learned is that is hogwash, because balance does not exist at all, except for that tiny little moment, right? Otherwise, it's the struggle to try and get back into balance. So when we frame it that way, and that's the image that we have, like, clearly that mental construct does not help us. So I've started looking at it as harmony, right? We have all the pieces and they can all be moved together at the same time, and you just shift from one to the other. But it doesn't mean that something's more important and something is less important, like on the scale. And for me, like, when I started thinking about things that way, I started at least taking some of the pressure off myself as I was in these other environments that were not helpful, So it's interesting because what we're talking about is such a complex, multifactorial issue. which is the system which needs to be fixed. But in order to have that be, we have to be well.
Yeah, and you know what I think is I believe the way the system is going to have to change is when we refuse to participate in it
Yes.
as is. Because when we all participate in it, we are complicit. We are complicit in a system that is harming and killing physicians
Yes.
and patients. And so I remember when I first heard that, I was at an American Academy of Family Physicians meeting and it was uh, sessions about underserved patients. And they were talking about those of us who were working in underserved medicine were complicit in the disparities. For instance, by me working at a church late at night that goes to 11 p.m., my patients at times had been hit by a bus crossing to go to the street to the bus station from our clinic because it's
Right.
so dark out and head to the ICU. And I'm like, I'm complicit in that? What do you mean? And so it's really
Yes.
hard to think like I'm fighting against the system. I'm doing the good work. And yet, if we can all, as physicians, just see every day that we go and we work faster and faster for more RVUs, and they say jump, and we say
Yes.
how high, and we don't stop and say, I don't want to work more than 12 hours at a time anymore. And if we can't do it for ourselves, if we can do it for the people underneath us, sometimes that helps. It's like, would you want the new hire to get only 6 weeks of maternity leave? Would you want her to pay overhead and come back $50,000
Right.
in debt because she
Would you
was
want
out
her
on
to
leave
not
because of
take
her
care of
baby?
herself and not treat her postpartum anxiety or depression because she was
No.
afraid of not having her job?
Yes, of what the other
Yeah.
partners would say or think. And especially for younger trainees too, if we have a young medical student, do we really want or our daughters, for those people who do have daughters, some are going into medicine, would you want your daughter to have to take 7 days
Right.
call? Would you? Is that the life you really want for someone? And if not, why do we not say, this is not right. We
Yes.
can do better. And I know the system has limitations, and I know there's not a deep enough bench. I know. But as long as we keep, it's an
Yes.
unfillable need, right? It's at every community that we're in, every one of us. Like I'm a family doctor. There are not enough family doctors. We're the number one recruited specialty across the country for years and years on end, decades on end. There's not enough of us. So does my child have to pay that
Right.
price? Do I have to pay that price? It's an
Right.
unsolvable problem. And so, how can we live our own life in a way that is meaningful to us and fills some of the need and is willing to leave some of it unmet, such that, like, for instance, last week I was just at ACGME, the residency accrediting body. I'm like, you know what we need? We talked about the deep bench. I'm like, what we need is more GME dollars and more residents and more
Yes.
attendings. That's what we need, not for us to work twice as many hours as
Right.
every other shift, right? I mean, airline pilots and all kinds of industries have
Limitations.
these
Yeah.
truckers limitations, and we operate on people's brains at like 30
Delivering their
hours deep.
babies.
That's
I mean,
dangerous. It's not, yeah, delivering babies. It's
mhm.
terrible. It's not safe. And we do it and we do it and we do it and we do it because we're afraid we're going to lose our jobs. And really, what I talk to a lot of people about, it seems so superficial for people
Yeah.
to look at it this way. But the excuse, if you really boil it down, comes down to but
Yeah.
money. They don't want to lose their job. And there's a saying that's something like, the only thing more addictive than like chocolate and heroin is a monthly paycheck because we think it gives us
Yeah.
security. And
Was that what
does
you
it? I mean, we learned in the
But
pandemic,
and
no.
that's true. And I can imagine if I go back to what you were talking about before when you were lying on the floor in the emergency room septic, was that anything? Was that even on the list? No.
I didn't, I'll tell you, my little boy was standing there watching me, begging for my life, holding his fuzzy little doggy. And I never once, make me so tearful every time I talk about it, but I never once thought, good thing I have enough money
Right.
for him. Like I never thought of that. Good thing that I have a trust. Good thing I was just like, I just want to live. I just want to live. I
Yes.
just want to live. The amount of dollars, and plus, if you look at, of course, at our median income in the country versus physicians, because I coach physicians all who make, say, 100,000 because they're part-time, all the way up to $1 million a year and everywhere in between. And there is no point at which, like 300, 400, $500,000, that someone's like, okay, well, now I totally
Yes.
have enough and I'm golden and I'm going to start working on my own terms. And that goes the same for
Yeah.
net worth. You think, oh, well, once I get to a certain net worth, or once I pay off my student loans, or once my house is paid off, the scarcity is indoctrinated in us, right? And we all think we have to, it's not just the money, but we all think we have to do it because we'll
Yes.
lose our jobs if we don't. And it's like, well, what if you did lose that job? Let's just play the worst case scenario.
Yeah.
That's a sort of a coaching concept we can do. What if you lost your
Yeah.
job? What
There's
if?
another one.
Then you'd go get some
Yes.
other work. Yeah, and maybe more aligned with the way you want to live your life. You're an incredibly valuable member of
Right.
society. You really are. Your skill set, your education, it's unmatched, it's
And I would argue one
unparalleled.
of the biggest things, not to interrupt, is compassion. We are dealing with some of the most
Yes,
compassionate people on the planet:
yes,
doctors,
yes.
nurses, teachers, right? People who are in these service
Mm-hmm.
industries who it's their compassion that really drives everything, and that we kind of just, poo-poo a little bit.
So I think that people come with that knowing they're unhappy, not knowing what the other side is going to be like. And I believe very much there is no yellow brick road to the other side. It's like you find the
Right.
path by walking it and just believing in
Yes.
possibilities, as you said, and being willing to fail and be like, that didn't work. Okay, let me try this. That didn't work, because they think I'll have to have it all figured out. And so that's 100% because I'm going to stay
Right.
on this track for the rest of my life as soon as I pivot. And it's like, what if you're willing to do like a few things in this phase of life until you figure out what really fits best? And then it's not this all or none thinking that I have this one job where my boss is horrible or I'm
Right.
homeless on the street. That's just
No,
not
there's a
the way it
lot
goes.
in between
So,
there. And I think
in
that's really the
between.
beauty of
Yeah.
coaching, is that it actually opens us up and cracks us open to the fact that from the best case scenario that we might be pining for and the worst case scenario that we keep catastrophizing about, that coaching helps us to recognize there's so much potential and possibility and opportunity in between that we don't think about, right? Because our brains are here and
Right.
here.
Right. And I think it's that willingness, I think, to experiment and trust
Yes.
yourself to course correct. Because if you trust yourself to course correct, then you can
Yeah.
try anything. You can
Yeah.
experiment with
You could go be
anything.
a barista.
The
You
problem is
can
when we don't.
go back and be a teacher.
Exactly.
You can
People fantasize about that all the time, like the escape fantasy. People fantasize about going and getting admitted to the hospital just so they can take a break, like just a mild gastroenteritis, like whatever, some kind of,
isn't that
some kind of illness
like
that I know, or they want to go to like a hotel
yeah.
for a weekend, or they just want to escape, and then the
Yeah.
barista becomes one of these
Yes.
escape fantasies too. And it's like, it doesn't have to be so
No.
extreme, people. You don't have to go from I'm a full-time physician at this one job to I'm in the hospital, or I'm at a hotel for the weekend, or I'm working at Starbucks. But that's your brain trying to serve you by saying, this pain is so big. Listen, I'm trying to get you
Yeah.
out of this pain. And so instead of going to that extreme or noticing when we have that extreme, and the most extreme of
Right.
that is suicide, which is suicidal thoughts, which is trying to get you out of the pain you're in, is to say, maybe there are some other
Yes.
options. Maybe, just maybe. And when I coach, I really find that maybe, just maybe is
Yes.
super powerful, because it's hard to deny that maybe, just maybe, like maybe, just maybe we'll have a man on Mars soon, right?
We'll have a
Maybe, just
woman
maybe there might be some money,
or
a
a woman
on
president.
Mars.
Like maybe, just maybe,
Maybe, just maybe one
it
day.
could happen, But
It
it's getting
could.
to that
It
point of
could.
saying it could happen, right? So I want to be very mindful and respectful of your time. I have one final question for you, and I'm going to try and keep you to like maybe a sentence. I don't know. What are you, like, of all of these amazing things that you've done thus far in your career, in your life, what are you most proud of personally, not just professionally, but personally?
That's a beautiful question. I think coming to the place where I live my life and every day in alignment with what matters most to me.
I can't thank you enough for bringing all of your light and your honesty and your vulnerability. And I know everyone listening will be very moved by everything you had to say. And hopefully they'll be more open to possibilities in their own life from hearing your story and the wonderful transformations that you help make happen each and every day. And I'm so grateful to still be a part of that circle.
Thank you so, so much. I hope so very much. Possibilities,
Yes.
people. So many more possibilities than anyone has ever imagined.
Yes.
Infinite
I love that.
possibilities. And being open to the magic of that. So it is so full circle and beautiful to come back and be with you on this
Thank
phase of your
you.
journey. And I can't wait to
Yes.
see
And where can
more.
people find you?
Google everywhere. No, empoweringwomenphysicians.com. The people here are
Yes.
listening to your podcast, so they can hop over. I have a podcast, like free guides on our websites. If you are really a woman physician, you can come
Yep.
to our Facebook group. I'm there all the time. I love the people in there so very
Yes.
much. And we have a lot of people who are not women physicians trying to get in now.
Yes.
So do not go over there if you're not a woman physician. We'll filter you out. We're
Yes.
very careful.
Very. So thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm so proud of how you're showing up in the world and all that you're doing. It
Thank you,
makes me so
Sunny.
happy.
And I appreciate that. And I just continue to be inspired by all the things that you're doing. Truly. It's awesome.
Thank you.
You've been listening to the Prescribing Possibility podcast. I want to thank Dr. Sunny Smith for joining me today. And I hope you all heard something that cracked you open in just the right way. If you're feeling called to explore what healing or possibility might look like in your own life, let this episode be your permission slip to start. You can learn more about Dr. Smith's work in the show notes. And if this conversation moved you, please share it with someone else who is quietly carrying too much. Until next time, keep going gently. You don't have to do it all. Just come back to yourself, and I'll meet you here again.